Good evening and welcome to Drie, Bokke, a ball and BlitzBod. We have another incredible show for you tonight with some of the best media people around with the best insight and opinion. And on that note, I have to, I pointed the right way for the first time ever on this show. Introduce you to my co-host. So look, this man here, right? If you haven't watched his YouTube channel, shame on you, first and foremost, right? So, which he's going to shamelessly plug in a minute because I said he could do it. And then secondly, he's just been on like some of the biggest rugby shows in the world. I think one for World Rugby, which makes it the second biggest he's been on this week because this is obviously the biggest. Mr. Gareth Mason, how are you, sir?
How's it, Andrew? Very well yourself. Good to be here.
Yeah. Good. Mate, tell us about what you do. Tell the men around the world.
All right. Well, going around YouTube's been my life for the past 3 years. It's been an exciting journey where I just share the passion of the sport. I'm just a fan sharing the passion with my subscribers and recapping, previewing, giving thoughts and opinions of the game that we all know and love called rugby. And it's been going from here and there. Just, being with the challenges that I have in life, finding jobs like in a presenter because of the look, it's not always easy. So I thought I'll create my own platform and grow it through that. And so far, so good. It's been a great journey and I haven't looked back.
Cool. And the name of the YouTube channel is?
Walking Tall with G-Man.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Guys, get on that, subscribe. Some awesome stuff on there. And at the end of this, I'm going to hound him for weeks until he lets me come on the show. So just a quick one. Obviously, this might be the last time we see them because we're not allowed to buy it anymore. But thank you for your support tonight. I think actually the people we should probably be thanking the most tonight is Eskom. They proudly sponsored our lighting for their first time this week. So good on them. Hey, then Andre, top man, SA Rugby fans, thanks for all the graphics you've been doing for us recently and ones from earlier in the week. They're so cool. Everyone loves them. We get great feedback on them. So I appreciate that. But let's get some guests on. I'm going to go first. Thankfully, this man was readily and available tonight because unfortunately one of our guests has succumbed to the Eskom jinx, curse, whatever you want to call it. But huge Bulls fan, editor for Sport, and runs an amazing sports website called the yellowcapsports.com. So get on that, have a look, some great stuff. Mr. Jacques, Henning, how are you, Squire?
I'm well, and you, Andy?
Yeah, we're good, man. We're good. You ready for this evening? I've heard a rumor you've got some trade secrets for us.
I hope so. I've got one or two names that maybe going to surprise people. Not necessarily players, but it's great to be back on the show again. And it's nice meeting you also, Gareth.
Nice meeting you too, but it's really good. I've seen a lot of your work, and it's good to be part of the community. It's awesome.
Yeah, indeed.
Great stuff. Who else we got on tonight, Gareth?
And then we introducing a guy I've been Facebook friends with for quite some time, a die-hard Western Province fan, Mr. Angus Opperman, who's also a writer for Rugby 365, which is one of my favorite go-to news channels for my own content. So welcome to the show, Angus. Good to have you with us, joining us tonight.
Well, thanks, Gareth, and thanks, guys, for having me. Hello to everyone else in the room.
Hey, Angus.
Right, as we know, there's two provinces that have been probably making the headlines during this lockdown. And it ain't the Lions and it ain't the Sharks. So we're going to talk about the two. And Gareth's going to lead us off about we're going to start with the Bulls and save the juiciest one for the last. Gareth, let's start with the Bulls. What's been happening there, man?
Oh, Blue Bulls! What a time it is to be a Blue Bulls fan, and I really mean that. Even though I'm a Sharks fan, but the Bulls, Jake White has come in with a bang, and he's really shaken things up. We've obviously seen players exit. We will touch on it, and obviously, Jacques, you shout and give me your opinions on this as well. But obviously, Warwick and Lunt going to the Stormers is a massive one. We know of Josh Strauss leaving. They've also confirmed the departure of the hooker Yaku Fasaki. Bulls fly off Manny Libok, and obviously the big one that everyone's talking about is Berger Undal, which is a massive surprise for a lot of fans joining the Lions. But I mean, that's just out of the few players. But I mean, the amount of players that have come in, and Travis Ismail from the Harlequins coming in. We've got Skalk Erasmus. We've got Jan Ace. Obviously, a big one is Gio Upland. I'm so excited to see what he can do. It's good to see him back in South Africa. Walt Steenkamp. We've got Sentu Majezi, who's obviously gone in with the swap with Roscoe Speckman, which is pretty good. And then there's also rumors, which Jacques, you can confirm, or if it's actually could happen. Marcel Coetzee might be joining the Bulls next year. So Jake White has really done amazing stuff for the Bulls, and I'm terrified to see what they're going to produce next year. I think they're going to be a force. I really mean that.
Yeah, Gareth, if I can join up there with you, you spot on. Marcel's going to be joining come in end of May, June next year. Unfortunately, Ulster didn't want to let him go because he's one of their marquee players, if I can call it that. Yeah. And apparently they're seeing it as a very big loss for them, so much so that if they had to let him go now, it could possibly see sponsors even go and stuff like that. So it's really impressive to know that one of the, our boys, as in the South African, is that precious to a club overseas. And I mean, Andy can vouch for someone like Francois Lowe, obviously, that used to be at Bath, that's now retired. I mean, what impact that's going to be. But that's definitely.
You're going to make me cry. You're going to make me cry, man.
Sorry, man. But Marcel's definitely happening. And unfortunately, only in, as I said, May, June next year, which I would have liked to see him earlier. But yeah, I understand the situation. You've mentioned the names that have left. I mean, names that are coming in also. Dwayne, we all know Dwayne is coming back. Dwayne Vermeulen.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Which I just want to, just pause there for a moment. I think the captaincy issue is quite a topic that's going to be coming up very soon. I think when talk of rugby finally comes, as we know, I think the guys are starting to train in the next week or so. Then it's just a matter of time when it's going to, the games will start, and what will start, we don't know yet. But the captaincy is going to be a very interesting topic. And I had a chat with someone today, which actually made me think about it. And I think we all would be in agreement that Dwayne would probably be the captain. But there's a big question mark at the moment for Jake, which is the Boks going to partake in this rugby championship that's proposed or not? That is a very big question. And if they do, Jake might actually opt to go with someone else that might rather be there for the whole season instead of someone popping in and out, which is something that I didn't actually think about myself. I mean, for me, Dwayne is an obvious choice.
I think it's definitely, that's going to be the question I think everyone's asking, is this rugby championship. And if we look at South Africa currently with lockdown and all that stuff, I just don't quite see it happening. And I think that's why they're talking of these different things of state of the origin and all these things coming in. But that's a smart move from Jake, is having a guy who can go throughout the game and keep the leadership and the control of the team. So I think that's a smart move forward if we don't get into the rugby championship.
Yeah. And then obviously, sorry, it's Ants.
No, I was going to say though, with the ins and outs, especially if you probably cut the average age of what's gone and the average age of what's come in, are you not worried as a Bulls fan that long term it might suit Jake for a couple of years, but he might just bugger off in 3 years and leave you with some rather large holes to fill?
Yeah, and it's a very, very, very interesting point you touching on there, which is one of my concerns as well. I mean, for the last few years, we've seen guys come and go the whole time. And firstly, because of age, the guys are, I don't want to say they passed the expiry date, but, a lot of them are beyond their peak. And so you kind of have to ask the question, why is he bringing in certain guys that are only going to play for maybe a year at best, two? I can only imagine he's doing it to get some experience in the team. But something that I think that I've started realizing this week when I saw Burger leave, which was a big one, and I'll get to that just now. Ewe Viljoen was on the cards as well. The day after Burger is announced, suddenly Ewe Viljoen has gone from coming to the Bulls, going to the Kings, and now suddenly he's a Lion, which is unbelievable. So, yeah, it's amazing what happens in a few days or weeks. And, so now we're sitting with a situation where the centers are very thin at the Bulls. And some digging around today, I've kind of figured out that basically, so part of Jake's plan is not just, even though he's bringing in all the old guys, he's got a succession plan in that he's working on to blood some young guys, which I think is a good thing, because at the end of the day, how long are we going to stick with these old guys? And no disrespect to them, calling them old, but in rugby terms, they are old. And at some stage, it's going to bite again, which it has the last few years. So I think the succession plan is going to come through in certain positions. And at this stage, scarily enough for me, it seems like the centers is going to be one of those spots that are going to see youngsters coming through. Which youngsters I have no cooking clue. And I'm very, very worried in that regard, to be very honest with you.
Just a question, Jacques, for you with regards to Jake White. We all know, I mean, the resume of the man is just phenomenal and he's done great work. Are you concerned that with COVID-19, there's talk of, obviously everyone's taken quite a lot of pay cuts, but we know for sure that Jake White's definitely itching to go back to an international job. Now, let's say, for example, I saw a rumor the other day about Eddie Jones getting a pay cut, and they're saying it's like against his contract, etc., etc. And there's interest over in Japan and even in America. Now, if a guy like that leaves a team like England, who aren't looking bad at all at the moment, and Jake gets an offer, you're concerned about him maybe jumping ship and doing what Eddie Jones did maybe to the Bulls? I'm not going to say that's going to happen, but it's definitely, Eddie Jones jumping from the Stormers to England. Do you think that could happen with Jake White, or do you think he's here to stay for a couple of years?
So my understanding, Gareth, is that when they signed Jake, they made a very, his contract was set up very cleverly in the sense of that they made sure that there's no kind of clause in it that allows him to get out, I think, for at least 3 years or something. And by the sound of it, if you've been listening and you've been following the media and you've been checking interviews with Jake and stuff, I must say it does come over that he's quite committed to the cause. It's almost like he's realized that he's messed up with quite a lot of teams. I think we all know the Brumbies, the Sharks.
Last Sharks.
There's issues all over the show.
Montpellier.
From what I know,
It goes on and on.
They're not
it goes on and on.
They're not all Jake related.
It's an extensive list, Jacques. It's an extensive list.
No, it's fine. So I've got a feeling, I could be wrong, but I've got a feeling that Jake almost wants to kind of, quash that rumor or that stigma around him, that he jumps ship too quickly. And I mean, he's not the only guy that does that. So
no, sure.
It's time for him to kind of prove people, that he can stick it out. And I mean, like I said, if you've been following the media, you've been following interviews with Jake, that's the tune he's been singing. Not that I can't say for fact that he's actually talking the truth, but I, for one, believes he is. And I want to really back him. I think Jake is a wonderful coach. And something that I heard today was from anybody that followed the 2007 World Cup or, Jake's team and his management staff in particular. He's actually bringing in Henning, who was the psychologist for the Springboks in 2007, and I think we all can vouch, that he had a hell of a big role in that team, and I think the Bulls especially need someone like that at this stage. And also Andre Volstead, who's a fitness guru of note. He's been around the block all over the show. He's also been drafted in now. Whether it's been announced yet, I'm sorry if I'm announcing it, but yeah, that's what's happening from a management point of view. So he's not just working on the team alone. He's actually working on his management staff as well. And that is making me very excited hearing names like Andre Volstead and Henning especially.
I think it's
Yeah, Jacques.
definitely.
No, sorry, guys. No, just to add to Jacques, saying that he would love to basically right his wrongs of previous teams. We all know that he's bringing players, he's letting players go with the Bulls now, but Jake is at his best when he has this blank canvas to work with. And he knows what he wants. So what he's doing now is the guys he lets go is guys who he sees not working in his plan. So he's getting players like Anizanko, Dwayne Vermeulen, Gio Aplon for experience at fullback. So he has this sort of plan that he already envisioned, and he's getting guys like he did when he took over the Springbok job in 2003 or 2004, actually. So it's kind of like Jacques said, he want to redeem himself, but he also has this sort of thing. This guy won't work for me. I need another guy in his place, and that's just the harsh reality, you know. It might cause conflict between players and the union, but at the end of the day, if Jake starts winning matches and championships, who's going to complain?
I just want to. Yeah, something that's been, you know, since Jake has been announced, and then, you know, this big movement that started happening, you know, with him bringing in all these players and stuff, people were quickly to jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, Jake is buying a trophy or whatever. You know what? At the end of the day, I think people need to realize one thing. Rugby is a professional sport. That's the key word, professional. So Jake is allowed to buy people. That is what the game is all about. Anybody who plays football manager or whatever you call it, you guys aren't getting free players. You've got to buy those players. And that's part of the game. So I think we need to just, you know, get to that place where we stop, you know, thinking of whatever we can say to belittle the Bulls and stuff. I'm telling you now, whether the Bulls win or not, that's another thing. Jake's got to make these guys still gel. But at the end of the day, I think Angus said it spot on. He's got a blank canvas to start with. COVID-19 couldn't have happened at a better time for the Bulls, if they're the only ones in the world, and you know. But that has given Jake the platform to build a team that he thinks he can do business with, and he's had to let a few guys go. And also in that regard, we all know there's the salary cap. I think it's 60 million for each team going forward. So what one must understand is you're sitting with a guy, or you sat with a guy, Burger Orendal, who was earning at this stage 3-point-something million, for those that don't know. He's not even a Springbok, and he's earning money that some of the Springboks are earning. Just to tell you even more, so the Lions have finally taken, you know, or signed Burger, and part of the deal is the Bulls are actually paying like I'm not exactly sure what the amount is, but it's just over R1 million as part of his salary. So the Bulls are actually paying some of the players that they've let go. Even though Jake said they're not part of their plans, this is what he has had to do, you know, in working with the salary cap thing, you know. So, I mean, you can understand having a guy like Burger Orendal earning 3 million, you could buy possibly 3 other younger prospects with that kind of money. And yeah, so it's been tough. And I think if Jake could have signed more guys, he would have. But he's sitting with players that I can tell you now off the record, well, it's on the record now, that nobody actually wants. And the Bulls are even offering money for these guys to go. And nobody wants them.
That's the thing. I just saw a clip 10 minutes before we came on air of the Bulls have put out of Jake White almost responding to it, that they're putting a longer version of the program out very soon. And he says, listen, we've got 45 players in the squad. I'm allowed to spend 60 million rands. Like, almost like, come and investigate me. Like, it's not a spending spree. We're doing this from the scratch. So that'll be a really interesting one. But my final question on the Bulls is probably for Angus. Angus, you worried? Are you worried about what Jay White's doing there as a Western Province fan? That they're on the sort of on the way up, or are they on a spiral down?
Yeah, look, Andy, the thing is, like Jacques said as well, whether the Bulls win or not, it's irrelevant for now. But the day they start clicking with the team they have, I do fear them. I mean, we haven't lost to them at Newlands, I think, since 2011. That's a good stat for me personally. But I think when we move to Cape Town Stadium, there might be a sort of a joke coming out if we do lose to them at home. Because if you look at the pack itself, it's a monster pack. And we all know, so in the World Cup final, if you have a good pack, you have the platform to do whatever the hell you want to. And the successful Bull teams of the past, they have had the solid packs and the good kicking fly off. So if they can get all that right again, they'll be good to go. And they will certainly, whether it's only a Currie Cup or maybe Super Rugby again down the line, there will be a fear for many teams to come.
Yeah, cool. Joe, got a couple of questions there for us to chuck up, please, sir.
Yeah, good evening, guys. I hope that you're well. Greetings from myself and BlitzBod there. Andre Drie from SA Rugby Fan says, Jacques, should the Bulls have let Manny Libbok go? There's your question.
I saw that one. Was it? Well, obviously, Jake doesn't see the potential in Mani that a lot of people do see, and I yes, I do agree that Mani has a bit of an X factor in him, but I don't know if the Bulls play the game that Mani wants to play. And to be quite frank, I'd actually like to ask Andre the question: do you think Mani made the right choice to go to the Sharks, though? Because the Sharks are loaded with fly-offs. So I don't think Mani actually made the right choice. If there was a team that Mani should have gone to, my opinion would be the Lions.
Cool. And Angus, you must be happy with the Warwick Gallant signing. That was a strange one to let go. I suppose it's the same question for Jacques, but I'll let you go first on whether you're happy with that.
Well, personally, I'm ecstatic about the signing, to be honest. I was quite sad when I heard Dylan is leaving. He's a personal favorite of mine, and also we have a good fan relationship, going. So it was quite sad to see Dylan go. But when I saw Warwick Gallant coming, I'm like, it's not a like-for-like replacement. It's actually, with all due respect to Dylan, a better replacement at fullback. Yeah. So I was quite stoked about it. And also, it also basically paved the way for Willemse to stay at 10, because there was a lot of pressure from not everyone, but like mostly Province fans for Willemse to go back to fullback, for how we went through in the season. But yeah, I'm quite happy about Warwick Gallant coming to us. But it's kind of like a homecoming to him, It's a nice boy, so I guess he always wanted to be a Stormy anyway.
I'm leaving that for you.
By the way, just to add, the Lions offered Warwick more than the Stormers, and he still came to the Stormers. So that says a lot as well.
Maybe he likes mountains. Maybe he just likes mountains.
I think
good wine, of course.
Also, a factor to look at is like when we go back to Jacques talking about everyone going at Jake White for going on a spending spree. If we look at the other teams, I mean, a lot of the guys, like you've just mentioned, Warwick Gallant getting an offer from the Lions and then going to Province. There's been a lot of big moves around the country where the Sharks have got a few guys here. We've got seeing the Cheetahs. I know it's a different type of league, but all these guys are coming back to South Africa. I think why everyone goes for Jake White maybe is, I don't know, history, but just because of the name currently in that whole coaching panel of Currie Cup Super Rugby, Jake's the biggest. So I think media attention is Jake White's done this, he's let go of these guys, or he's brought in these guys. I think that's also why the media maybe focuses too much on it. So I think everyone's been on a bit of a spending spree. I mean, I've seen a few transfers from various teams that are quite interesting and big names coming through. So I think in defense of the Bulls, I think everyone's been doing it, but I think because Jake's name's so big, everyone's been focusing on Jake and going for Jake, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think people should embrace the fact that Jake's back in South Africa, and actually, obviously not as a Springbok coach, but, just being in South Africa, coaching. I mean, he had a stint with the Sharks. Things didn't go well there. So let's hope, it turns out better, as I mentioned earlier on the Warwick Gallant thing. Yeah, I didn't see that one come either. I mean, I was under the impression that he was part of Jake's plans. So I must say I was kind of, I won't use the right word, but I was a bit ticked off, when I saw that actually happening, and I kind of felt a bit betrayed there. But yeah, maybe the Stormers needs him. because I know, I mean, there is the rumor of Damien Willemse that's still alive. Just by the way, for any Stormer or Province guys that's watching, the rumor's very alive. Just between me and whoever's watching.
He owes people for Paul Ruth, doesn't he?
Basically,
Ruth.
Yeah, I've heard the plan was for him to.
Ramon Samuels is actually at the Bulls at the moment, and for anybody that really knows the story, Ramon Samuels is Damien Willemse's half brother. And yeah, let's. I'm gonna leave it at that for now. We can have another chat the day the signing happens, and then I'll just say, "Oh well, I told you so."
Yo, Jacques, it's actually not his half brother. I think his mother wasn't married when she had Ramon, so he kept his surname of his mother's side, but they actually are normal brothers, from the same mom and dad as well.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks.
But in any case, like you mentioned, I've heard about that story. Someone told me the other day that Willemse's whole thing is like after his Stormers contract expires, he will join the Bulls. But it's just rumors on my side as well. I'm confirming nothing or I'm denying nothing as well,
Yeah.
Just leaving it there.
You boys come on every week, just cause controversy. We're gonna move on from this in a minute, but one really interesting comment obviously grabbed me because well, it mentions a certain person. But can you just bring up Leroy's comment for me, please, Joe?
There we go.
Jake can't coach younger guys, only veterans, knowing their job on the field. The guys around him will work with the players. With the box, Eddie was the main guy in 2007. You can either respond to that, gents, or not. I don't mind. Whatever, we can leave it there.
What, 2007? We're in 2020 now.
Okay, let's move forward. You can teach old dogs new tricks. Right, Bulls put in the box, wrapped, gift wrapped. Few
damn, man.
few bits of controversy there. Maybe a few little rumours. Happy days, happy days. Right. We need to move. We're going to move south, so we're going to move to mine and Angus's neck of the woods. Right, I'm going to try and do this off the top of my head. I haven't written a script, but Angus, you need to pick up if I miss anything, okay? And guys, let me tell you, this is the abridged version. What I'm going to give you, okay? It would take me the full hour to explain the last 4 years at the Stormers off the field. So here we go. So a few years back, Mr. Paul Jacques was made CEO of Western Province while fellow Wakefield was the president. To just give you a quick overview, Western Province Rugby is split into two arms. There's the amateur arm that looks after the clubs around the Western Province and the regions. We call it the amateur arm as in because it's not the way it's run. It's just it's not a professional game. Okay, so that's all the clubs that you see. And then you've got a professional arm, so let's call that the Stormers. And the CEO sits over the top, but the amateur arm has a president, that was fellow Wakefield. So at the time, there were some issues with Arios, who bought all the sponsorship rights for Newlands. They believe Super Rugby and for internationals, but it turns out Saru and Western Province may have had some different ideas on that. So they are still at loggerheads in a legal battle with some accusations of reselling rights, reselling advertising space in the stadium, which was actually Arios's job to do, not Western Province's. So we move forward, and then obviously we know that the deal with, well, not the deal, Newlands was coming to its natural end. Beautiful stadium, full of history. We all love it. We've all been there. But it has to be said, it's fallen apart at the seams. And if you're going to move in the modern world, you have to move forwards. Therefore, they needed to move to the Cape Town Stadium. During this time, fellow Wakefield left. And then there was they do the presidency by election. Hope you're keeping up with this. And Zell Moret was elected as the president of the amateur arm, so Western Province Rugby, if you like. I'll refer to the professional arm as Stormers moving forward. And there's a lot of debt. There's a heck of a lot of debt. But what Western Province do own is a lot of property, including Newlands, including the ground, including a place called Brookside as well, where Villagers Rugby Club also play. And as we saw last week, 2 weeks ago when we had Anton Chaiton, he just got verbal reassurance. I don't know if that's now been written from Zelt on the new deal that the Villagers will continue to play there. Anyway, the election alone was quite controversial. It was there was a member of the Exco board trying to get a stop to it in the High Court the morning of the election. it's fair to say that politics plays quite a big part in Western Province Rugby boardrooms. But then Mr. Paul Zacks does a deal with Investec for 110 million rand, which would include things such as the knocking down and rebuilding of Newlands as a commercial space, to which Western Province would have gained 5% of future revenue profits, and wouldn't have had to pay for the demolition nor the rebuild. It would have been a simple investment. Half of that came up front and was paid to Western Province, and it also gave them working capital, cleared debts with Remgrow, and also would have helped them in the area battle, so to speak. Anyway, after many boardroom battles, Mr. Zacks left his post in January as CEO, and now Zelt is in charge at the moment because there is no CEO. And a couple of weeks ago, reneged on the Investec deal and has gone for a deal with Flight, a property developer. I believe one of their offices is here in Paarl. And with many rumours flying around of text messages and WhatsApp in between the board of let's keep black rugby away from white rugby. White capital, I apologise, probably doesn't ring true because Flight, if you look on their website, are a full white board. So what has happened is they've taken a loan. So it's not an investment, it is a loan at Western Province. And they have created some joint ventures, including Newlands Devco and Brookside Devco. And there is another company in Claremont who are going to take another 10% of the 50-50 split. Where that 10% is coming from, I actually have no idea. Maybe Angus can help us on that one. But it's fair to say that it's probably a risk over reward deal because it is a loan, it is not an investment, and it leaves Newlands in a place where it is going to get knocked down. They will continue to move to the Cape Town Stadium, but they do now owe money again, rather than taking an investment, which the investment may not have given them as much as potentially this loan and the 50-50 split on the new property development companies that have been created. But that's what they've done, and it's signed and it's sealed. And Angus, you, I'm sure, have a head opinion on this and a heart opinion on this. So maybe start with the Rugby 365 head opinion and then go with your heart. And did I miss anything?
Well, I think for a Province fan personally, and for all of us, to be honest, it's kind of like a nightmare, and we hope for a happy ending at the end, because I think for the last, like you said, the last 4 years, things have been rocky with Western Province. And like you mentioned, the Aerials thing started in 2013 already, when they sold more advertising to other sponsors, where Aerials were supposed to do that, like you mentioned as well. And what happened was, I think it was in 2016, the first match of the season against the Bulls, the then CEO, Rob Wagner, he was supposed to resign, or not resign, I think his term came to an end June that year. But he resigned for that first match, I think it was in February. And everything went hunky-dory, there was no problems, at least not on the outskirts, but there's been problems going way back before then. I think it was merely a month later after that, after his retirement, the bombshell dropped that Aerials is suing Western Province for that astronomical amount of money. And since then, a lot of things went south. Stadium attendances dwindled, there's been reports, and Western Province tried to throw water on the fire, saying that the media tried to make them look bad, but in reality, they were to blame for a lot of things, and you mentioned a lot of those things as well. So yeah, from a head point of view, I guess, it's really atrocious to see what's happening to Western Province Rugby at the moment, or for the last couple of years, losing Newlands. I mean, I'm quite aggrieved about that personally, but I've checked the reports and stuff. I've been following this whole saga, you can say, quite closely. And according to Zalt Marais, the 50-50 partnership, it's not necessarily like people said, a putting all your eggs in one basket situation. Basically, what it will come down to is that although there are 50-50 partners in the Newlands Devco and Brookside Devco, and even Claremont as well, they won't have to pay a cent for any development going forward. And I think that development goes around 2 billion rand actually. So they will get the profits, the 50% profits and 40 million upfront for when development starts, but they wouldn't have to be liable for a cent when development does happen. So I think from that point of
As
view,
long
it's
as
probably not possible.
relationships stay amicable.
What did you say there, Andy?
I mean, as long as relationships stay amicable.
Yeah,
That's the risk of 50-50s, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Western Province haven't had the best track record when it comes to relationships. I mean, Remgrow, Investec, we can go on and on. Erios, they've had a bad track record for the last couple of years. So will this be the one that works out for them? I mean, we don't know. The fact is, we are going to Cape Town Stadium next year. That's no two ways about it. There will be one last game played at Newlands. I think the whole plan was to host a Barbarians match and a couple of clubs. But in any case, at the end of the day, Newlands will be demolished and it will be turned into a mixed development of housing as well as offices. But, like I said, I just hope this whole deal works out because the thing is, like, I think Flight has been around for only 10 years, where Investec has been around for, I don't even know for how long, since I could remember.
Global as well, the global.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you're going to basically take a gamble with your company or with your union, you want to make sure you do it with someone who's been around the block for at least, 50, 60 years. But now you go into a deal with a company that only has been around for 10 odd years. I mean, that's a massive risk you take. You mean that company can go bankrupt in a couple of years? I mean, COVID-19 isn't a joke. We've seen companies closing down so far. So it's a big risk, but there could be big rewards as well down the line. But we'll see how that goes as well.
Yeah, Gareth, what's your research telling you on this, and where's your gut feel with it?
Yeah, it's mixed emotions. I mean, Newlands has just got so much history and all that, and it's sad to hear about all this, the negative media about it. Two ways about it. Obviously, I'm all for Newlands because of the history and all that, but recently it was brought to my attention that a lot of the guys were saying when they book tickets for the All Blacks versus South Africa, it's always sold out so quickly, and because of obviously the support from Western Province and All Blacks in Cape Town and all that jazz, which creates quite a bit of ticket sales very quickly. One of the guys said, although he's sad that Newlands is going, he's excited for the opportunity to go to Cape Town Stadium because now he can actually go watch a game like the All Blacks versus the Springboks, which was an interesting factor which I didn't quite take into account. So although I'm gutted that Newlands is going in, if it allows more opportunities for more people to see games like this, especially a historic one like that, then all for the growth. What I am worried about with Cape Town Stadium, and although it's beautiful and everything, I just feel that when we get to Super Rugby and Currie Cup and all that, it's going to be like a white elephant. And that's one of my concerns going forward. If I look at Nelson Mandela Bay over here in Port Elizabeth, when the Kings play, albeit Kings versus Western Province, two different teams and support-wise, but you don't want a team like Western Province and the Stormers to see crowds that are less due to a bigger stadium, whereas Newlands, although there was all the drama and everything, there still was always one of the best crowds within the country. So from that point of view, it's 50-50. I'm gutted for Newlands. I've watched the box live there. The history, the atmosphere is great. But for a new beginning, a new opportunity to swipe the slate clean, let's give Cape Town Stadium a chance, and hopefully it allows more people the opportunity to see more games like the big ones. I just hope that for the sake of Super Rugby or whatever we decide to do in the future, it just brings the audiences there, so we're not seeing like a Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. Just to quickly end off my thoughts is, I always wished that when we got to the 2010 Rugby FIFA World Cup, they should have done and built on Newlands and made it like what they did to Loftus. I know it's smaller areas and all that stuff, but they could have done something to really ignite that stadium. And I believe the same in Port Elizabeth. We've destroyed a history of Botti Erasmus that's hosted the Eastern Province in its good days, the Springboks, etc. We've created a beautiful Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, and now we've just demolished something that was great in a prime position. So for me, I think they could have done more, like what they did with Loftus, Ellis Park, for Newlands, but unfortunately it just wasn't the case. So I hope Cape Town Stadium can bring something special. I've been there once, and it was an experience, but I'm just shattered for Newlands for the history. But new history can be created. Let's see what Cape Town can do.
It'd be nice to have nice to have a stadium where you can get a beer, though.
Fair enough. Not right now.
Not right now, but go on, Angus, sorry.
Oh, sorry, man. No, I'm just saying that together what Gareth is saying, I have to highlight this to you guys, though. So the nice thing about Cape Town Stadium is that it's close to the waterfront. Now, the waterfront tend to buzz on a weekend. And if there's going to be people, tourists, they're going to be there and see, oh, what's the buzz about? They're going to see people with Stormer jerseys and flags. And, international tourists love to hear about the rugby culture in South Africa. And people will be like, oh, there's a rugby match going on. So even if during the week they didn't sell out the stadium, there's going to be random people buying last-minute tickets and fill up the stadium anyway. That's the one positive. Another thing I have to mention is that a lot of people talk about the bad parking at Newlands. I can tell you one thing. I've been to Sevens. I've been to Superhero Sunday at Cape Town Stadium. The parking issue near the waterfront is worse to me personally than Newlands. I mean, there's cool fields and everything, and Hamilton's rugby ground is next to Cape Town Stadium. But if Hamilton's play the same weekend as the Stormers, will they open up the grounds for parking? I don't think so. There's not going to be space in any case. So parking could be an issue at Cape Town Stadium, contrary to popular belief of people saying that Newlands has bad parking. It doesn't have the best, but there are good spots. I mean, I have a spot I go to every weekend. It's just around the corner. I don't even pay a cent there because it's like a secret spot I kind of dug out a couple of years ago. But in essence, there's going to be the tradition missed of having braais before the match and all that. But like Gareth said as well, you can create new history. I mean, have a nice meal at the waterfront. You can maybe go the morning, explore, go on a boat ride and go on the big wheel and then watch the big match. It can be an amazing match day experience. But like Gareth said, it's 50-50. It could go either great or either bad. We don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see how it goes.
And Jacques, final words on Newlands. Obviously you're a Bulls fan, but Newlands must hold some. I mean, for me, 97 Lions, first test, unbelievable. But what does Newlands mean to a Bulls fan, so to speak?
Yeah, I feel that I want to agree with Gareth, wholeheartedly there. That it's from a South African perspective, that's the home of rugby for South Africa, almost, if I can put it that way. Although, Ellis Park is like the box cauldron. But Newlands is the home of rugby for South Africans. And it's sad to know that place is going to be demolished for whatever reason, there might have been or is or whatever, I mean, I think really the guys at Western Province need to start looking, at themselves and really start taking responsibility. This is not something that has started in the last 10 years or 20 years. It's an ongoing thing from back in the day. You can go and speak to any old Western Province player. You've had Anton Scheidt on the show before. I think he can tell you stories from back when he played in the 80s. That is a very long time ago. And it's time that Western Province, start, I'm saying management-wise now, that they start taking pride in their union and their players, and everything that involves rugby, because that is what it's all about at the end of the day. And something that I was just thinking of while you guys were talking is, this whole debacle around the cheetahs being cut out of, the Pro 14, so that the other top 4 teams can rather go and play. You know what? That to me is also it's almost one and the same thing. It's like, yeah, you've got a team that's steeped in history as well, and now they're just being cut. Literally, just like we don't have space for you anymore. And on the other hand, you've got Western Province that are struggling to stay, keep head above water, but they're a good team. So can't we just like? I mean, it should rather be a case of let's cut Western Province and give Cheetahs a chance. I know the guys aren't going to be happy now. Hopefully the chat goes berserk. But, it's just what's going on in South African rugby. That's actually one of the questions we should be starting to worry about when we're looking at things that's like the Cheetahs and then the issues that the province has. But for me, it's just an historical sadness that is going to go down in rubble. And in 10 years, 20 years time from now, the next generation of children and stuff won't even know what Newlands was or is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's always sad to see him go, and I think, like, from my experience, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I used to work for a place where they moved from their old stadium to a new one, and if you ask anybody, different sport, but you ask anybody, they missed the old one that was half the size and was and was crumbling. Plus, the team have been rubbish since they moved there. But I think we may have some time here to just shift onto another subject, which has been coming down the side of our screen quite a lot during this program, which is really cool, actually, because one of the things that has been coming out very, very recently is the idea of South Africa potentially leaving SANZAAR, which we sort of just touched on there. And then secondly, the fact that the Rugby Championship may well be played in New Zealand. Help me out here, gents. October, November? Is that what we were saying?
Yeah, I think it is.
Down in New Zealand. Yeah, two weeks of isolation, then straight into it after potentially not playing any Super Rugby for South African players. Means it may not end too well for the world champions, which is it's not really a good look, and that's probably why Rassie is not very keen on it. And the other one is Andy Marinos is still coming out.
I wonder if Andy got load shedded.
There we go. I tell you what
just happened there, eh?
Just absolutely unbelievable. What's in fact we've lost two there, lads. So what we're going to do?
All the boys are gone.
But yeah, what we're going to do, it's time for the big fellas to jump in. When in times of adversity, Big Joe Sheppel's in from the bowels of the room that we're performing, and there's me sort of busily working away, just looking at questions and stuff like that. Ladies and gentlemen, in the absence of the great Andy Daniel, who has disappeared for a few seconds, you're welcome to another episode of Drie, Bokke, Ball and Bod. We are joined by a number of people, but Jacques Henning, the owner and founder of the yellowcap.com, and walking tall with the G-Man himself, Gareth Mason's in the house. Welcome, lads. Thanks very much so far. And we're just going to monitor Andy and Angus Opperman coming back in. But there was a question there which I'll just throw up to cover from Darren Everett up here in Ireland. Is Super Rugby finished for South Africa, given the rumours with the rumours of them moving to the Northern Hemisphere? And it's quite interesting in the fact that Darren actually remembers something I brought up on one of the Three Blokes shows a while ago. He thanks Zakaya Zvitanovic there, because on the Pro 14 board, and there's been a lot of chat about this, Gareth, hasn't it? On the Pro 14 board, there are three key members of the South African rugby community. Rassie is on the board from his days in Munster. The chief operating officer now is a guy called Charles Krul, who was former CEO of Eastern Province Rugby, if I remember rightly. And you had Jabiru when he was president. I'm assuming that position is still held for the president of SARU as well. Gareth, I'm going to drop out and bring the other lads back in, but take us forward on that, mate. What's your thoughts on the Super Rugby teams in South Africa moving to the Northern Hemisphere, etc., etc.?
Again, it's another situation where I'm 50-50 on it, is because there's so much history from Super Rugby playing against teams like the New Zealanders and Australia. I mean, it's been a great time for the team, and we've developed and grown a lot in that whole aspect of the game. It is a good move, I think, for us to go over to Europe, and I think it's going to happen whether we like it or not. As you said, Joe, there are guys on the board, so it's in the plan. Do I think we should totally leave Super Rugby completely? I don't think that should happen. I think we should still keep our foot in the door. New Zealand's, there's so much talk of them taking over more TV rights and all that stuff. And if they do take over and remove a few South African teams, then by all means, send two strong ones over and continue Pro 14. But keep us in Super Rugby, just so we can still get a flow and keep that relationship with SANZAAR and New Zealand. Because I always say, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And currently, I know we are the best, South Africa, but New Zealand are still the dominant team provincially. Crusaders are the best in the world. Yes, you got your Saracens, and we will one day see that battle take place. But for us to continue playing Crusaders, yes, we might get a thumping now and then, but there are a lot of teams that are growing and developing, and it's all thanks to the experience of playing against these teams. So for me, yes, we should move north, but we should also stay in Currie Cup. So I'd say split it. 2 teams here in Super Rugby and 2 teams with the Cheetahs joining them, if that's allowed, or 3 and 3.
Jacques, opinion?
Sure. Sorry.
I've been actually for going up north for the last probably 3 or 4 years now. Since the rumors, well, I won't say rumors, since Australia started getting on their little bandwagon and saying we need to leave, and I don't know why they're the ones saying it. Seeing as South Africa is the biggest contributor from a broadcasting point of view, I mean, we put in the most money into, the whole Sanzar deal. So I know this new talk with New Zealand and Australia again on the bandwagon saying we need to get out. It's because I've heard that apparently there's an American investor that New Zealand has found, and good for them. Good for them. If they don't want us to be part of the tournament, then I have to kind of ask the question: what's happened to that famous story where New Zealand always talk South Africa up and say, they always want to play against us because they actually rate us. So it's you kind of wonder where and what has happened to that story now. But at the end of the day, I think from a financial perspective, which is what rugby sadly has become, these days. I actually spoke to Andy earlier tonight, and I told him, we had a discussion. I can't even remember about what, but it boiled down to I told Andy, sadly, rugby is not about the players anymore. They're just the pawns in the big, in the picture, and it's about broadcasting and sponsor rights. That's all it's about. It's about money, and if that's what it is, then I mean, let's go up north anyway. There's way more money there, from what we're getting now. And yeah, it's going to be interesting though to see how we adapt to the conditions and stuff. But I think it's time for a change, maybe, especially now with the the Northern Hemisphere catching up a little bit to Southern Hemisphere rugby. And then the added benefit, I think, at the end of the day, if it does go that way, is that World Rugby really needs to look at bringing back world, rugby tours and stuff. And that's where the whole Black South Africa rivalry will become even stronger than it is now. Because now, at the moment,
Correct.
You know what? You're guaranteed to watch the Springboks and All Blacks at least once a year, either here or there. If you start, if it comes to a place where you're starved of the best game in the world, sadly, sorry, Andy, but it is the All Black South Africa, then, I mean, imagine when they do come around or we go there, I mean, how big it's going to be. And then it's going to be a win-win for everybody, not just the broadcasters and sponsors, but the fans will also benefit because everybody will be so hungry to see this match or few matches that's going to happen. So I'm all for going north, honestly.
Less is more, I say. Less is more. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with the sponsorship now, just not to go too off Southern Hemisphere rugby. But, excuse me, get the Gallagher Premiership. They're looking at playing 3 games in 7 days just to get this season finished. And the reason they're trying to get the season finished is because they'll lose all their BT Sport money if they don't get the season finished. And all of this talk about player welfare that World Rugby have been spouting for the last sort of 12 months, and every governing body, may I add, not just to pick on World Rugby, but it's just going out the window. It's absolutely going out of the window. Yeah. Because if they don't get their money, then they can't play a game next season, or the club's going to go down the drain. I mean, some of the figures that have been spouted around, a lot of the clubs bought into like the Gallagher insurance scheme, and none of them, and it's not paid out. Whereas Northampton, rumour has it, paid into a QBE scheme and have been getting £1 million a month, and they're the ones that will probably survive. And the problem is, these clubs may just survive, but at what cost? At what cost to players, and at what cost to the product that we all know and love? And I think that's possibly, maybe Angus can round this up for us as a sort of final comment. Is that where we are now? Are we in a danger where there's just no big matches outside of the World Cup, because you play in a rugby championship. Okay, fair enough. You know, you've had your battles with Argentina and like you've lost the odd game here and there and stuff. Then you want to chuck Japan in there. Then you want to chuck these people in there. Then and all of a sudden you're actually playing New Zealand twice. It doesn't really mean much because you're both either miles ahead or miles behind.
Yeah.
Australia have got a long road ahead of them. And it's kind of like we're always trying to help everybody else out, but maybe we're not helping ourselves out. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And before I get to that, to add about going north, I spoke to Dimitri Katerkilis, I think about almost a month ago now, and I asked his opinion on that same issue. And he said to me that we should go north, mainly in his view, because he's played here for top teams, except for the Kings. Sorry for their fans. But he's played here for top teams. Good question. But like he played for Montpellier over here, there he played for the Lions as a junior for Western Province here. And he said to me that playing South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina all the time, you tend to copy each other all the time, he said to me. And whatever works for South Africa, New Zealand will take like the high ball in 09, the drop goal that they start implementing now in Aotearoa. And whatever works for Australia, we tend to copy or they tend to copy. Whereas in the Northern Hemisphere, you play against so many different nations in certain competitions that you never actually know what to expect on the day. So for that perspective, you know, we can grow so much in terms of our skills development, in our approach to the game, if you do go north. And also, like you guys mentioned, there's the financial benefits as well. And if we do go north and get more money, then so be it. You know, I would actually be sad if we do have to leave Sansa. I mean, I love the whole South African, New Zealand rivalry and Australia being in the mix as well. But at the end of the day, the reality is we won 3 Super Rugby titles. Actually, the Bulls won it. And between, I think, the rest, the Aussies won a... Shut up, Chuck.
If he puts that picture of Guthrie Steenkamp on Twitter one more time, he's going to have to get blocked. I think.
Yeah, but New Zealand won.
Have you seen my Guthrie Steenkamp impersonation, Andy?
Does it go like that? Or is it like that? I can't remember.
No, guys, but the reality is that, you know, like there's 3 titles here, while at Loftus, and 17 in New Zealand spread across 5 teams, you know. Like, it's not good for us in terms of travel. I mean, they have the Trans-Tasman, and we go on 4-week tours. It doesn't help us in the end of the day. So if we take a short flight, have an hour's time difference, it will work for us so much better. So if we have to go north, then we have to go north. And at the end of the day, if that means the Boks get stronger and be the best team in the world for a long time, I can't see why not, you know. We should just do it.
Just on that one, Angus, what you're saying also with Dimitri, I had a chat to Sara Pretorius not too long ago, and he said something very similar about playing in different nations as well. But also what he said he learned quite a bit about was playing in the cold. It's a different type of atmosphere of rugby when you're so used to the heat in South Africa. Yes, it's a bit chilly in New Zealand at times, but he said getting used to that and adapting your game just taught him so much more from a game perspective. And I think having said all that and hearing what you said, it could be a good thing for our guys to learn. So when we go play overseas against the Englands or our November internationals, we'll be a lot stronger and it can give us a lot more experience with those guys. So I think there's a lot of benefits, and also the crowd aspect. It's quite passionate over there in Europe. So that's another thing that we're not actually used to. And that's what a lot of the Kings guys that I've met have said. They've enjoyed the crowd being closer, and there's a lot of electricity. Obviously, it's not for them. It's for the home team, but it's been a learning curve for them to experience that. So I think a lot of truth in what they're saying is how it can actually benefit our game as well.
Yeah, I think just to round it off, I mean, we had Don Armand on a couple of weeks back, and one of the things we were chatting about was Exeter's struggle in Europe compared to their domestic game. And he was like, yeah, but you don't understand. He's like, you run out at the Stade Michelin or you run out at Toulon and they get the bonus point try and the newspapers go in the air and it's all just absolutely going off and the noise and you just haven't got a clue what's going on. You get lost in it the atmosphere, no matter how focused you are on the game. And that's surely like, and they're learning from that, and they are learning from it, and they're getting better and better. And they're in a good spot this year. You know, they've got Northampton in the quarters. They've got a real good chance to go further than they have before, which I think would be a great thing for the Chiefs. So yeah, guys, can't believe that. Just over an hour, unbelievable, flown by. Sorry for the me and Angus having to go and sort of share some electricity for 10 minutes. I don't know what happened, but it usually happens at least once a week. Put 10 rand in a meeting, we'll get through it. James, I can't thank you enough for this evening.
Andy, sorry, man. I actually thought it was my comment when I said they should cut, Western Province out. Cape Town guys just suddenly go boom. You know, I was like,
maybe your Google assistant.
I'm not that
cut between the north and the south like that. God. Yeah. But James, thanks so much, Angus. Keep your eyes open for Angus is writing on 365. It's brilliant. It's straight to the point, and I love your honesty, mate. I love your honesty with the way you write. It's brilliant. Yellow Cap, get on that as well. We've got to try and convince him to restart his Super Brew leagues, although it sends him into a mental breakdown doing them. He does have a lot of fun on those, Jacques, so get them up and running again if we ever get any. And guys, don't forget, thanks so much to my co-host tonight. Get on that YouTube channel. Gareth's got some amazing stuff on there. He's also been doing some really cool stuff with World Rugby and like Squidge Rugby recently as well. And we all know that, let's not talk about the famous one that he did in the last couple of months on a certain World Cup final. Anyway, guys, don't forget our YouTube channel. Go to the Three Blokes of Ball and Pod, but there is a playlist called Drie Bokke there, which I'll post tomorrow as usual. And we'll get that up and make sure you share that out. Give us a little like, give us a little share. That's all we ask. We don't get paid for this. Just, like and share. That's all we ask. Isn't that right, Gareth? That's all we need in life. Yeah. Likes and shares. But thanks very much. Our Facebook page is going to be up and running very, 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 very shortly. And then in future, everything will be centralized in there for everyone to enjoy. And we'll put all the shows on there for you to look at. We're back in two weeks, hopefully with some more amazing guests. But gentlemen, thank you so much for this evening. Thanks for all the guys watching at home. And thanks for your amazing comments. We love the comments. We love the questions. Keep them coming. Keep challenging us as hosts and co-hosts and pundits. Let's call ourselves pundits on here, because we love to know that the rugby family is growing and growing and growing when others maybe trying to destroy it. I'll leave you with that thought. Good evening. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.